A very warm welcome and good evening to all present here. Welcome to ENSPIRE. Today we have among us a very experienced expert as our speaker. He is the founder and managing director of SatSure AG. SatSure is an innovative design decision intelligence from space company based in Bangalore, Switzerland, London and Sydney. SatSure is a member of World Economic Forum's Global Innovators Community. Its futuristic platform leverage advances in satellites, machine learning, and big data analytics to provide answers to large area questions. Not only this much, Abhishek sir has also been board member and director to many major organizations. His businesses have been in publications like Forbes, Business Standards, Bloomberg, Tech for Impact, the Hindu Business Line. I'm really excited. Hope you are too. So now let's welcome this great personality. Over to you, Abhishek sir.
Thank you very much, Ayush. How are you guys doing? First of all, thank you for joining this session. I know it's a Saturday evening. I hope you guys are having a nice time in this 4-day marathon events. Yes, happy to be here and interact with all of you. Talk a little bit about prototyping, planning, and testing of products. I must confess, I am not an expert in products. But I have experience in building and launching products in different markets. So I have some exposure to how this is done. And I can give you some examples of what worked for us, what hasn't worked for us. And if you're an aspiring entrepreneur, what should you keep in mind? So yes, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Ayush, and the rest of the Triple IT team. Okay. So I see nobody's answering my poll question. So I have a poll question out. Feel free to answer them. So how many of you like answering polls is my poll question. Okay, most of you seem to like it. Nobody dislikes it, which is good. So we have 27 people, and I only see 17 votes. Come on, people. I'll leave this open for one more minute. Okay, 1 minute is too long. Let me just close the polls. So thank you for your response. Looks like most of you like answering polls, which is great. So you must really enjoy taking exams as well. I used to hate it when I was a student. So exams were the least interesting part of my college days. But yeah, it's long over, and I look forward to having a good time with you today. I don't have a presentation to show. I'm happy to keep this as interactive as possible. Maybe talk a little bit about how products are made, how products are sold, and talk a little bit about the philosophical aspects of being an entrepreneur, because that's an important part in how you design products and solutions. So, okay, if you have any questions as we go along, just feel free to type them in the Q&A or just ask, unmute yourself if that's an option available to you, and you can just ask me. So SatSure, the company that I founded, is not my first company. Before this, I started another company. I was called Dhruva Space, which was one of India's first private space companies. And that's when I got exposed to products, real products, which have like a physical form. We used to build, satellites and other space components. So that was my very first exposure to products. And my current company, SatSure, we build enterprise applications for banks, insurance companies, multilateral organizations for managing risks. We use satellite remote sensing to help manage risk for enterprises. So this journey of product development started way before I was an entrepreneur. When I was a user, my first job was in an insurance company in India, And uh, as part of that engagement, I got to use a lot of very, very old applications, that were probably developed in the 70s and 80s in the US. And that's when I learned how not to design products. What products are really bad, or what seemed cutting edge for 1970s didn't work for me in the early 2000s, in the mid 2000s, because it just seemed so crude and outdated. It was, but I must tell you, some of those systems were extremely stable. So you didn't, I mean, things hadn't changed in 20, 30 years of its existence, but it was rock solid. It would never crash. There would be no bugs. And that is another lesson that I learned, that, building stable products is important, even if it's a little bit, rusty on the surface, as long as it works, and as long as it works reliably. So that was one, inspiration in my early days, that we should, while we build products, we have to build products that last, that are stable, and that can stand the test of time. So that was my initial, exposure to products. Of course, as a consumer, I've been a user of cell phones, computers, been using different applications and products. So I have a general perception and understanding of what kind of products I would like as a user. And what I realized when I entered the corporate world is a lot of enterprise products are designed to be boring, right? The most exciting enterprise product would be, I don't know, Microsoft Excel, because it is so widely used. It is as interesting as it can get. But if you look at some other systems, if you look at enterprise ERP systems, or if you look at CRM systems, at least from the mid 2000s, it just looks very, very boring. And I've always wondered why it is the case. Why should it be like that? Because we are okay, or we need really nice UX and UI when we're using consumer products, or when we're using social media, or any other applications. But suddenly, when I go back to office, if I'm a bank employee, I log into my banking software, it just looks so boring, and I'm okay with it. And I also thought that was a very curious thing. Why should we have this kind of a split personality, if I may call it that? That we only accept certain levels of user friendliness and usability on our personal front, but suddenly when we are in office, when we are in a work scenario, we are happy to use really crappy products. Pardon my language. So that was another, I won't call it inspiration, but that was another observation that I made along the way, which also shaped my product thinking. And as we started building, my current company, for the first 5 years of its existence, we were completely bootstrapped. We only recently raised our first round of funding. So when I say bootstrapped, we were always having limited resources, not enough money to hire the best and the brightest, not enough money to build the most rock solid infrastructure. But we still had to survive for many, many years. We still had to be profitable. We still had to make things work. So as part of that journey, we started out building very, very simple products. So again, if you look, there are so many product development frameworks out there, from doing MVPs and market testing them, and then iterating on them, to there are more formal product frameworks. And there's a lot of literature and research on product life cycle and product life cycle management and things like that. All that is great, and I do think you should learn them as students, and get exposed to all these different frameworks before you enter the workforce, or before you start developing your own products, because it will help you. It will give you a framework for thinking in terms of products. It will give you like a structured approach to solving a problem and building a product that works. So despite so many frameworks being there, we still see a lot of bad products. We still see a lot of products that fail, products that don't work, products that don't sell. products that don't solve the problem. It's because we are all different. There's no one problem, one solution fits all, or one solution that solves all the problem, kind of a framework. So because all of us are different, all of us have different expectations, all of us expect a certain, a different outcome. Not You cannot have 100% success rate in any product, right? As long as you are building a product that works for your target audience, as long as your customers like it, as long as your customers are willing to pay for it, that is really the test. Is somebody willing to pay for what you've built, for the problem that you're trying to solve with the solution that you've built? That is the real testament for any product success, because we've built a lot of products which we could never sell. People wanted to use it, they liked the concept, but they didn't want to pay for it. So one of the early learnings, again, in my career, was build products keeping the users in mind, understanding from the users. In fact, co-create the products with the user. Get them involved in the product development process, so that you're building something that they want. And if they want it, and if it's solving a problem, then they should be willing to pay for it one way or another. And another trick is, if you involve your users in product development, they will have a sense of shared ownership in the product, which means they will have that level of loyalty towards the product. So it will be their product as much as it is your product. So I think that's an interesting phenomena that I also learned in my early years. In fact, back in the day, it was the early stages of open innovation. Open innovation was not even a thing. Very few large multinationals had taken on open innovation as a program. It was mostly experimental. Today, with open source software being so much mainstream, if you look at the entire cryptosphere, if you look at the entire blockchain sphere, everything has come out of open source, or most of it has come out of open source. And in fact, open source is more the underlying philosophy of a lot of things that we are doing in a decentralized way today. So before open source was a thing, we had proprietary software. And when there was proprietary software, there was not really so much of open innovation. When I say open innovation, it is different people coming together to solve a problem. It could be a company and its customers. It could be different companies coming together to solve a problem, or it could be a value chain of people with expertise, institutions with expertise to come and solve a problem. And that was very, very early. So I realized that involving customers from the very beginning is a good way to do it. But does it really work always? Especially if you're an entrepreneur, how do you do it? How do you even go and engage with a customer and tell them, look, I have an idea. Will you spend time with me? Will you give me inputs? Why would someone do that? Let's say you want to sell to banks. Let's say you want to go to an ICICI bank or a State Bank of India. Would anyone have the time to just talk to you and give you inputs, especially if you're excuse me especially if you're trying to build something from scratch? Perhaps not. So that's where minimum viable products come in. That's when prototypes come in. That's when wireframes come in. That's when today there are so many wonderful wireframing and prototyping tools. Excuse me. I think that's something that I don't see a lot of people leverage. You don't really have to have a fully developed product before you go to market. You can conceive a product and a prototype. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. I just had a bit of a cough, and I don't have COVID. It's just a normal cough. So I have seen so many great products today, especially for prototyping, and most of them are free. And, if you can think of typically, why do we even create products? We always create products to solve a problem, right? With the hope that by solving the problem, especially if you're an entrepreneur, that by solving a problem, you're creating value and somebody is willing to pay for that value so that you can capture that value as revenues. So that's typically why most people build products, right? Otherwise, in fact, I remember a very old saying. I don't even know who said it, but it goes something like this: that everything that could have been invented has been invented. Isn't it true? Literally everything that could have been invented has been invented. Still, there are so many things that are getting invented all the time. Why is that? I mean, the fundamentals of physics have pretty much stayed the same. There is no new breakthrough discovery in fundamental in pure sciences, in physics, chemistry, math. But the applications keep evolving, right? So typically, did people live comfortably in the 70s and the 60s? Absolutely. Did they have everything they needed? Absolutely. Could we have, if we went back in time to the 1950s or 60s, would we live a comfortable life? I think so. When I watch some very old movies, that were in black and white. They used to produce black and white movies. So if you look at some very, very old movies, you will see that you had everything that people needed. You had a dining table, you had a kitchen, you had kitchen utensils and appliances and vehicles, and people had everything they needed. And yet we kept improving, we kept building, we kept innovating, we kept transforming our products. And of course, things have become very high tech. Things have become very, very autonomous, automated. There is a lot of intelligence in our systems. It is no more mechanical systems. We've gone from mechanical to electronic to now completely virtual systems. I still don't understand how a metaverse would work. I'm not a user. I'm not even an active social media user. So I think I'm a bit lagging behind on some of these things. But I see a lot of innovation happening. So as an entrepreneur, why do you build products? You build products so you can solve a problem. And while solving a problem, you create value for someone. And the test of the product's worth is if someone is willing to pay for the value you create. And that is the absolute fundamental of entrepreneurship. Unless you're a social entrepreneur where you don't really care about revenues and you are looking to create social impact or some other metric. Start what we did. I actually still remember the very first product we made. In fact, it was not even a full product. It was just a dashboard. And it was so ridiculous. Today, we would not even call it a product or even a dashboard. But it was our first product. And, we were absolutely in love with our first product. And that's what happens, right? You build something and a lot of effort has gone in. You think you've done a good job. But in hindsight, if you look back, it is not so great. And that's how the evolution happens. You start with something, go test it in the market. A lot of things will work, a lot of things won't work. Features will work, modules won't. You make a lot of assumptions, but over a period of getting continuous feedback, you can start to refine your products. And I do think prototyping, even before prototyping, wireframing, in fact, even before wireframing, identification of the problem that you want to solve is the absolute first step. Once you've identified the problem, I think the ideal thing to do is look at the universe for all the solutions that exist and why it may not have worked in solving this particular problem that still remains unsolved. I think that should be the absolute next step. And then you look at, in order to solve this problem, who am I solving this problem for? Who will be my user for this problem? Because one problem may have multiple stakeholders who may be affected by it, but you may want to only target a particular user and make it convenient for him or her to solve that problem for him or her. So Then you identify who is your user, who are you trying to solve the problem for, and then understand from their point of view what matters to them and what doesn't. If I'm a bank employee and I'm working in a rural branch, and I'm the we are terribly understaffed, and we have so much work to do, so much paperwork to do, and what I would care is for efficiency, because I know as long as it works, as long as it saves me time, as long as I'm able to serve all my customers and go back home on time, I'm happy. So things like that. So identify the pain points and the circumstances in which your user operates, and try and create measurable KPIs for this user from your product point of view. What would he like to, or what would he or she like to see in your product that will matter to him or her? That is a good starting point. Once you've done that, building out a wireframe, just splitting it into various screens and workflows, and connecting them all together, building like a prototype will definitely get people excited, because people want to see something tangible, something that they can touch and feel, that they can navigate through to see what it looks like, what it feels like. That is even before you even wrote a single line of code. And pretty much today, with no code solutions, there are so many of these platforms out there where you can prototype. It's fantastic. And in fact, with low code, no code, with literally no skills, someone like me who's not a programmer, I can still put together a solution that works. And the advantage of that is, you spend less and less resources in the innovation process. The less you spend on innovation, the more you have for marketing and sales, right? Especially when you're operating as an entrepreneur with limited budgets or limited resources, you have to optimize. So doing something like that will obviously get you started, and it's all about customer feedback. Take this to customers, what you built, even if it's not a working solution, even if it's a prototype, take it to as many users as possible to get feedback. What works, what doesn't work. You think this feature will solve their problem, but they think it doesn't matter because it's not even a problem for them. So understanding the user's perception of the problem you're solving is very, very key. And then obviously, once you have sufficient feedback, you build it into a solution that works, into a product that can be commercially shipped, and then you sell. Obviously, testing it out is a continuous process. Improvements is a continuous process. Today we are using, Windows 11. Before Windows 11, I think we've had many generations of Windows, right? And it has come to this point because we have, over the years, or Microsoft has over the years collected a lot of user feedback and implemented them. Although they seem to have, every new release they made, every new version of the operating system they came up with seemed like the latest and greatest, and it could solve all the problems. But we still have latest and greatest solutions coming now, and it will continue to come in the future. It's because we all give feedback, right? It could be explicit feedback where we are saying this, we like this feature, we don't like this feature, or we ask for features, or implicit feedback, which is obviously being collected based on our user behavior, based on our behavior on various applications, and it's all being used to continuously improve products, to continuously improve efficiency and usability, and ultimately make it work. So yeah, that was a long monologue of my unprepared speech on products and prototypes and what you can do. Happy to open the floor for questions, and I'll be happy to talk about what we've built and how, what challenges we face. So Ayush, so would you like to?
Yes, so we really learned a lot about prototyping. The major learning was your first product is not the final product.
Never.
Never the final
Absolutely.
product. We continuously improve. And we also learned about planning and testing about the MVP. So on the right hand side, if there are any questions, students, please ask, sir.
I can see some questions in the
Yeah.
chat
Yes, sir.
window. So I see one which says, "As a layperson with no connections, how do I get market access?" That's fantastic. Look, we are all layperson, right? We all have no networks and contacts, but we live in the era of social networks. We live in the era of LinkedIn, and there are, I mean, so many networks, right? So I think a good place to start is connect on LinkedIn. People are generally helpful, and especially if you're trying to build something to solve a problem, be very clear why you're connecting with them. Tell them, look, this is what I'm trying. I don't know if it's even a problem. Would you have 5 minutes for a feedback? That usually works, because nobody starts off knowing everyone, and that's how it typically starts. And try and identify the the kind of people that you want to connect with. And of course, talk to as many people as possible. You never know where opportunities can open up from, or who knows who else, and who can introduce you to who. So talk about your product. In fact, I would say talk about the problem that you're trying to solve passionately. If people see that you're passionate about the problem you're solving, they would want to help you, right? If you say, can you tell me some problem that I can solve? I don't know, I'm just bored. And nobody cares, right? Nobody wants to help you then, because they're like, come on, man, go watch some TV, or go play a game. If you're bored, what are you doing? But if you're passionate about a problem, I'm really passionate about making things efficient. In how can I speed up transactions on a blockchain, where today it takes 8-10 hours? Can I make it a few minutes, a few seconds? uh, you know Passion drives people, or passion motivates people to help you. And I think talking about the problem you're solving passionately is a good start, to get people excited, and to get people to think about who they can introduce you to, so that you can get the right inputs. And obviously, another big advantage a lot of you have today is, as students, you have the world is open to you, right? You can reach out to anyone, and usually people respond, right? But if I got a call from a competitor, or another company, or somebody working in say, an Accenture, I would be skeptical. I would be like, why should I talk to someone from this company? Are they trying to steal our ideas? There'll be a lot of such reservations. However, if I'm a student, if I'm writing to someone saying, hey, I'm trying to solve a problem, I'm doing a project, or I'm working on a problem, or I'm doing a thesis where I need to solve something, can I get your inputs? I think a lot of people will be open, because they have their guards down. They have less things to worry about, because you don't threaten them, or they don't feel threatened, rather. So I think that is something that you should leverage while you're still students. And it doesn't mean once you get into the corporate world, it becomes difficult. As long as you have a purpose, you have a reason, and people should realize that you're not going to waste their time, right? That you're serious enough that you're doing something, and and that's how people engage and give you feedback. Okay, there's another question. How to do prototyping? It depends, right? I mean, if you're building like a physical product, you'll probably, I mean, if you're building a car, how do you build a car prototype? You actually put together all these components, and do it. In fact, even before you put the components together, you design it, on software. And even before you design it on software, you do the planning. And even before you do the planning, you think about the features that you want to have. So work backwards is a good solution, in my opinion. Start with what is your vision for what this product should look like, should feel, should do, and then work step by step backwards, all the way till the components. From a car to the single, I don't know, a nut, right? You work backwards and then forwards again. So that's hardware, right? I mean, today you have so many rapid prototyping tools, especially with 3D printing and things like that being mainstream. You can think of a product and see what it looks like. In fact, 3D printing is not just a prototyping tool, but it's actually mainstream manufacturing. It's called additive manufacturing. So I know many companies. I know there is one company called as Agnicool in IIT Madras, and they are building rocket engines which are completely 3D printed, and that's fantastic, isn't it? I mean, you can think of a product, design it in software, let your printer print it out. You don't have to take it to a machine shop. You don't have to go to a factory. You can just 3D print it. So that's another advantage. So in today's world where additive manufacturing is a thing, and you can do rapid prototyping using literally commercial 3D printers in your college labs, you can also build low volume products. Another big challenge in product development, especially physical products, which is not software, is scale, right? When you look at when you build a product, and if you get some things wrong, the cost of replacement, the cost of fixing it is very, very expensive, because in the first place, if you have to launch a commercial product, you need to commit to a minimum production quantity with a manufacturer, right? So you can't do 10 units of anything. You'll probably have to do 1,000 or 10,000 units, and when you do build them and you suddenly find a flaw, you'll have to do product recall. That's what happens with a lot of cars. You must have read that, say, Mercedes-Benz or Maruti is recalling their products because there was some major defect. So that could be very, very expensive, right? However, with additive manufacturing or 3D printing, that problem is not there, because you can do very, very low volume manufacturing, 5 units, 1 unit, and if there's a problem in the next version, you can already fix it. So I mean, these are things that didn't exist 20 years ago, and that exists today for all of you to leverage. And I think you should. That is from a hardware point of view, right? From a software point of view, start with Adobe XD, or there are so many prototyping tools. I don't even know the names, right? You can just Google them and start building, from wireframes to basic features to with no code platforms. You can even put together an app that works, or a feature that works. So prototyping is that way it's become very streamlined nowadays. Otherwise, prototyping used to be you need to physically build things, or weld things, or hammer things into existence.
So we have a couple of questions in the Q&A panel also.
Okay.
What should be our strategy before and after launching the prototype? So
typically you don't launch a prototype, right? You're just creating a prototype to see whether it solves a problem or not. You use the prototype to do some level of market testing, or to see if your assumptions of the problem you're trying to solve is all correct, right? Sometimes you may think this works, but when you actually build it, and it may not work, because you may have gotten some calculations wrong, or you may have got some design wrong. So prototype is typically something, it's work in progress, or it is an early stage of evolution. That's prototype, right? So before prototype, do as many things on paper, on the computer as possible. Do all the designs, do all the calculations, try and validate all your assumptions theoretically in a simulation before you prototype. That would be the absolute pre-prototype activity. Then once you build a prototype, again, when I say prototype, I'm not talking about physical products, but it could even be your version 0.1 of the product, right? Or it could be the wireframes, or it could be like your version 0.1 of the no code version of the app that you're building. And then once you've done the prototype, obviously it's all about testing. It's about not testing for its efficiency, but testing for its sometimes product market fit. You may assume that what you built will sell, but when you go to the market, somebody will say, come on, man, we don't need this stuff. You think it's a problem, but we don't care if it's a problem or not. So that's when you learn what the market needs. You need to go with something. You can't go on a blank sheet of paper, because then your customers will not probably know where to start, right? So you take something to your customer and say, hey, this is what we've built. We are trying to solve this problem. Does this work for you? And then take that feedback, come back, fix it, go back, do that process a few times before you have version 0.1, which is ready for launch. But until you get from 0.1 to 1, you have that continuous process of collecting feedback and building, improving what you built, so that it's in a shape and form that somebody is willing to pay to use your product. Okay.
So just a last question by Swesh. If we have a product in our mind, but we don't know how to build it, like we don't have the resources, then what should be the process?
Okay. Swesh, can I ask you, what kind of a product are you talking about? Are you talking about like a hardware product? Are you talking about software? What is it? Are you thinking about an app? Hardware. Okay. So hardware is a very interesting thing, right? I mean, I love hardware products because, the challenges there are so many and also exciting at the same time. The very first product that I built as a part of was a hardware product. It was a satellite. And a good way to start is first identify the problem. Again, I go back to the same thing. I may sound like a broken record saying the same thing over and over again, but that's where it starts. Identify the problem that you want to solve. Then design a product on paper. What should it do? And then ideally, you create a bill of material. You identify, in order to put this product together, I need the following components, right? A lot of times, especially if it's electronic, today electronics are very cheap. You can just buy them from your local market or Amazon, or there are so many. I don't know. In Bangalore, for example, there is one street where you can just go and buy whatever electronics you need. All the components are just available. So that's a good place to start. Another place to start is obviously universities, right? You have a university, you have your labs, and you will probably, if you have an electronic lab, you'll probably have pretty much supplies of everything that you may need. That's another good place to start. Another way to start is writing to manufacturers, right? Being part of their testing programs as a developer. For example, if you want to build, say, something using Intel's latest, chip, you want to test something out, or most electronic manufacturers have like a developer program where you can order developer kits, and a lot of these developer kits are also very, very cheap. Sometimes if developer kits themselves, if you can't even afford to buy the developer kits, you can download the simulators of those developer kits and then still build it out as a simulation to see if it works or not. So you can pretty much do most of your coding around electronics on simulators and developer kits, and then port them on actual hardware. Besides that, I have seen, I don't know what, I have not been in India for many years now, but when I was there, I used to see a lot of maker spaces were coming up, right? All over, especially in Bangalore, I've seen so many maker spaces. Even in Delhi, Gurgaon, I've seen a lot of maker spaces, right? Which typically has all, it's like a college lab, but without your instructors, without your professors, without any, you can do whatever you want, right? So maker spaces are also a great place to go, because most of these maker spaces have an interest to tie up with vendors, to tie up with component suppliers, etc., because that's how they make their money, right? I mean, they have more engagement, more people go to the maker space. Also means, for these component suppliers, they get a captive audience of interested, young people who are excited about building stuff, like a maker community. So maker spaces, writing directly to component providers. And I think another thing that I've seen, which has worked for me at least, is ask them. If you can't afford to pay for it, tell them you can't afford to pay for it. Ask them if they can give you something for free. And in most cases, a lot of companies can give you something for free, right? If you write to Intel and said, look, I'm a student in triple IT and I'm building something, and it's part of my project. We don't have any budgets. Can you send us some samples? They'll probably send you. Even if they don't send you, if you just wrote it, just get your HOD to write a letter, or get your principal to write a letter. They'll perhaps send it, right? So things like that. So don't be constrained by the resources that you have or don't, right? Most likely you will never have everything that you need, but you can still build it if you have the willingness to do it, and if you are really motivated to do it, you can build it.
I'm sure this answers your question, Swesh. And so one question by Harsh is there: how to create a feedback to feed forward system for a startup?
So look, for example, if you look at Google, right, a lot of Google's products are in forever beta mode. What does that mean? That means that they have not released a so-called stable version, because they're still collecting feedback. They collect feedback, they launch a feature, see how people react. Are people clicking on this link or not? At the bottom, we have all these features. Are people using those features or not? Is it important? And there are various things like A/B testing, where for the same, or for two different audience, you're releasing two different products or two different features to see what works, how do the consumers behave, and things like that. Taking that feedback, you iterate and things like that. So there are many techniques to do this. So I really like products in beta, because that's a great way to, one, announce to the world that, look, we are in continuous improvement phase. We don't have a stable product for you yet, but if you're happy using it, if you commit to giving us feedback, then we can build a product that would work for you, that you will like. So that's one good way to do it. Keep your products in beta, invite people to use it. Even before you do a commercial launch, if you can afford it, or if you're a startup with an investor, see if you can subsidize the cost for your users by either giving it away for free, or giving it on a temporary free trial period where you're collecting all this feedback, or have a differential pricing where your beta products are cheaper than your stable products, whatever, right? So there are different ways in one, creating these channels for feedback, and creating the right incentives for feedback, right? Why should I, as a consumer who's paying $20 per month to use this product, also give you feedback? I don't care. If I'm paying you money to use this product, you should pay me money for my feedback, because that's helping you improve your product. That would be my mindset, right? So I would say that's why I would like to see companies, invite me into some kind of a developer program or some kind of a beta program. I mean, I don't know if you know, Microsoft has a program where you can get early releases and unstable versions of the product. I don't know what it's called. Insider program, I think.
Windows Insider program.
Windows Insider program, Office Insider program. The Insider program, why should I be excited to use an unstable product? Because it excites me to use the latest feature. It excites me to try out a version of a product which is not released for the rest of the world. So That's how they create the incentive for some of us to use products that may not be very stable, use that process and that, giving somebody an opportunity to try it out earlier than the rest of the market, use that as an incentive to also create feedback loops where you say, look, while you're using it, whenever there's a crash report, hit on this button, so at least we get the crash reports and we can analyze them and improve them. So there are different ways to do this. Other than this, the old fashioned way of actually asking for feedback, calling up your client, asking for feedback, nothing beats that, right? You can use any amount of automated data collection, behavior monitoring, using all these statistical methods of testing. That's all fine, but the best feedback is when you call up your client and ask him or her how you can improve the product. Of course, there will be bias, right? If I am a customer, I have a personal bias towards something. I don't like the color orange, and suddenly this product looks all orange. I don't like it. Change it to green. But it's just my bias, right? Is that something which is in the best interest of the product or not? I don't know, or you don't know. So that's why you need to employ, obviously statistical methods, collect statistically relevant sample size responses before you implement things, and finally make a rational decision. Ultimately, it is your product. Ultimately, as long as you're able to sell it, as long as you like your product, and this is very important. If you are developing a product, you should absolutely be in love with your product. It's like children, right? I mean, I'm not perfect. My parents still love me. It should be like that. Be like my parents. So you should always love your product, and I think that's important. And if you don't like your product anymore, if you don't love it, then you will not invest in developing it. If you don't invest in developing it, your product will just become obsolete and die. So yeah, love your product. Talk to the market, reach out to people, demonstrate passion in the problem you're solving, and always be open to criticism and always be open to feedback. Sometimes you may not like it. You may have spent a lot of time and effort in building something, and somebody says it's crap. No, it's painful. But take that feedback, because they are the users. They're the ones who are going to pay for it. So take that feedback in your stride and make it work.
Yes, sir, these were very important pointers and examples. I'm sure that the aspiring entrepreneurs will increase their EQ, execution quotient from here. And I think that's all for the day, and all the questions have been cleared up. Thank you, sir, for your really, really valuable time. And we
My
love the
pleasure.
session.
And all the best. I hope you all have a good time and be safe, and build great products.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, sir.
You too. Have a good day. Bye bye. Okay, this product is designed in a way that I don't know how to exit. How do I exit?
Sir, you can directly close the tab. No.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
guys. Have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye, sir.